Milton, the same person changed my reading too. Just unfair, isn't it? So, you can be honest. I want you to be honest. Who played the lottery this week? Don't feel guilty, because trust me, I wanted you to win. But when I woke up this morning, I found out that nobody won, right? Which was bad news. So I was hoping somebody today was going to come and tithe the cash prize. But then I saw that the next drawing in a couple days is going to be for 1-point-something billion dollars. 1.3? That's good news, because it's still out there, so we still have a chance. I'm not going to buy a ticket, but I trust that if you do and you win, that you'll remember me. Michelle, you can buy as many tickets as you want. But the news is sometimes good, and it's sometimes bad, right? And it can be the same story, and it's good to somebody, and it's bad to somebody. The news in its purest form is just information. And for most news stories, how we perceive it is whether it's good news or bad news. And so the news of Jesus' birth is good news to some, and it's bad news to some. And when we look at the story of the wise men, it's funny, the text never says there's 3. We just say there's 3, because history has told us there was 3. We don't know how many came. But the wise men came. It was good news to them. And what's interesting is that they weren't Jewish. There was no promise for these wise men. Jesus didn't come for them. They were probably religious leaders in their own country. They probably had a fair amount of wealth. They probably had a fair amount of privilege in their life. They probably lived good lives. But they were excited to hear that Jesus was being born. It was good news for them. It was such good news that they traveled for months to see Jesus and to bring him gifts and to worship him. It was good news for them. And so they come and they see Herod, who was the king of the Jews. He lived in Jerusalem. He's the one that should have been excited about Jesus' birth. This was good news to him and his people. And the wise men came. And I expect that the wise men knew or expected the Jews to know that Jesus was being born, and for them all to be excited. And so when the wise men showed up, I expect they thought they'd be coming to this big celebration, this big party celebrating the birth of the king. And so they show up, and nobody knows what they're talking about. And when Herod finds out, he's frightened, the text says, because he knows that Jesus will challenge him, challenge his power, his authority, that Jesus will be a threat to him. And so instead of celebrating, instead of changing, even though there have been prophecies about this day, he tries to have Jesus killed. Because it's not good news for Herod, the birth of Jesus. And I wonder, for us, for the people who live in America, for the people who live in Texas in 2016, is it good news that Jesus was born? Is it good news? Well, I think before you answer that, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you seek in life? What are you seeking? What are you living for? What's your plan? What's your goal? Because how you answer that question will let you know how you really feel about the birth of Jesus. Yesterday, we had a funeral here for my friend and mentor, John Sager, who was a pastor. And his family was here. His family who came from all over the country, to be here, and Lorraine was here, and many of John's friends were here. And for those people who are seeking comfort in life, who are grieving, who are mourning, who are looking for something, who are looking for hope, the news of Jesus' birth is good news. For what the psalm was talking about today, people who are poor, people who are oppressed, people who are having a difficult time with life, the message of Jesus being born is good news. For people who are looking for truth in the world, who are looking for truth in life, which I think the wise men were doing, they may not realize it, but they were looking for something that was true. The message of Jesus being born is good news. For people who are interested in living a life of love and peace and joy, and sharing that with the people who are closest to them, the message of Jesus' birth is very good news. But for people who want to be in power, not for people who want to be in power to help others, but for people who want to be in power to help themselves. They want to be in power just to be in power. The message of Jesus' birth is not good news because it threatens them. It threatens their very existence. That's what Herod had on his mind. See, the thing about it is Herod died in 4 BC. So Jesus was probably born a couple years before 0, which is kind of weird based on the way we have the calendar. But Herod died shortly after Jesus was born. And so there was an angel who spoke to Joseph and said, you can go home now. It's safe. Herod is no longer looking to kill you because Herod is dead. But what the angel failed to tell Joseph, and what we don't realize, is that there are a lot of people like Herod who have lived throughout history and who are probably living today. Because Herod died before he was able to kill Jesus, but there were others who were waiting to kill him. All Jesus had to do was stand up and say who he was and what his mission was. And there was a line of people who wanted him dead. And human cruelty and human desire for power killed Jesus. People like Herod killed Jesus. But as much as humans want to be in control, as much as humans think they can kill something, they couldn't keep Jesus dead because the power of God is stronger than the power of death. The power of God is stronger than the power of sin and evil. And the power of God is stronger than the power of our own ability to want to be in control. And so Christ overcame death. Christ overcame the grave. And I like to think that when the wise men showed up, they realized that this one was different. They went expecting to see a king the way that Israel was waiting for a king, somebody to be a military leader. They went expecting to worship an earthly king, and they encountered God, and they hit their knees and realized it immediately. And they came and brought gifts for him, but when they showed up, they realized that he himself was the greatest gift the world has ever received. Knowing that made them wise men. Knowing that today makes us wise still. Amen.